They called you cold, detached, arrogant. But you weren't trying to impress them. You were trying to survive. While other men seek validation, you seek freedom. While they broadcast every thought, you vanish into silence and return more dangerous than before. These aren't just quirks. They're patterns, 7 strange behaviors that set you apart, not by choice, but by instinct. If any of them sound familiar, you're not broken, you're Sigma. Ever walk into a room and just feel something was off before anyone said a word? That's not paranoia, that's pattern recognition. And Sigma males, they mastered it. Most people hear what's said. Sigma males hear what's meant. They notice the hesitation before the compliment, the glance that lingers too long, the laugh that comes too quickly. While others accept appearances, Sigmas instinctively probe beneath them. They aren't suspicious by nature, they're just attuned. Psychologists call this high cognitive empathy, the ability to detect emotional states and intentions from subtle cues. Psychologists measure this with tools like Cambridge's Reading the Mind in the Eyes test, a scientific way to gauge how well someone can read hidden emotions. Meanwhile, studies show that people who recognize micro-expressions tend to be better at spotting deception. But this isn't about being manipulative or analytical. It's about protection. Many Sigma males didn't develop this skill through training. They developed it through survival. The quiet kid in the loud home. The outsider who had to read the room just to stay safe. That's where the sonar started. And now? It never turns off. They don't confront fakeness. They don't announce it. They just vanish. You won't even know they saw through you. But you'll feel their absence like a missing truth. Most people are used to getting away with the act. They're used to others needing their approval. But Sigma males don't want your performance. They want peace. And when the mask slips, even just for a second, they see it. They store it. They step away. Not out of judgment, out of clarity. They don't expose the liar. They just stop clapping for the performance. And that's the part people don't understand. Because Sigma males don't call it out. They don't make a scene. They simply leave. And when they do, most are left wondering why, unaware their mask slipped long ago. That's why they're misunderstood, because they never explain. But they're never misled, because they never stop watching. There's no argument, no angry text, no, we need to talk, just distance. Sigma males don't do dramatic exits. They don't weaponize silence. They disengage, completely, cleanly, without fanfare. Why? Because they don't chase respect. They offer it. And if it's not returned, they vanish. To many, this looks like coldness, like apathy, but it's the opposite. It's self-respect in action. Psychologists call this low social dependency, a trait linked with high autonomy and emotional self-reliance. People with this trait are less likely to stay in environments where they feel disrespected or undervalued. Most people stay, even when it hurts. They fear being alone. They fear being misunderstood. So they explain, argue, beg to be seen. But Sigma males don't see that as strength. They see it as leakage of energy, of dignity, of time. Picture this. A Sigma male notices his ideas are being ignored in a meeting, not just once, not because they're bad, but because someone with more social power talks over him. He doesn't argue, doesn't force his voice. He listens, observes, then quietly makes moves outside the room that make the room irrelevant. And the next time they call on him, he's already gone, or worse, they now work for him. People expect a reaction. They expect drama. They expect something they can counter. But Sigmas don't give them that, because to respond is to reveal vulnerability. So they walk away, not to punish you, but to protect themselves. And here's the twist. You won't even realize it's happening until it's already done. There's no final straw moment you can rewind and fix. Because to a Sigma, The moment someone breaks respect, that's the end of the story. Even if they smile through the last page, it's not about being cruel. It's about not wasting breath trying to teach someone the value of what they already threw away. And so they disappear, not in anger, but in clarity. Because when peace becomes a negotiation, they simply exit the conversation. Most people follow the rules to feel safe, to fit in, to avoid punishment. Sigma males follow a different compass: logic, efficiency, and inner alignment. If a rule serves no purpose, they break it, quietly, without asking for permission. They aren't rebels for the thrill of it. They don't defy to shock. They defy to think. This mindset is the opposite of blind rule following. Psychologists call it heuristic obedience, taking actions simply because that's how it's always been done. Real-world lessons come from studies like Milgram's obedience experiments or Zimbardo's Stanford prison simulation, where participants followed orders or norms without questioning, even when they didn't make sense. Sigma males ask the question most fear: why? And if the answer isn't rational, they quietly stop playing the game. At work, a process takes twice as long as it should. Everyone complains, but no one challenges it. In a relationship, there's a toxic pattern passed down, but it's never questioned. In society, people perform roles they resent, simply because they were told this is how it's done. Sigma males operate by a principle of rational independence, a mindset observed in people with an internal locus of control. They believe outcomes come from personal action, not social permission. That's why they seem disruptive. To a system built on blind loyalty, thinking is a threat. They don't just ignore the rules. They build new systems that make the old ones irrelevant. They follow rules when those rules have reason, structure when structure has purpose. But they won't participate in rituals of obedience just to be seen as good. They'd rather be questioned than conditioned. Because to them, freedom isn't just about movement, it's about thought. And once they realize a rule is senseless, they don't protest. They just quietly stop playing the game. Some people live loud. They post every move, narrate every thought, and chase validation like it's oxygen. Sigma males do the opposite. They don't announce what they're building. They don't hype their goals. They just move. No drum roll, no spotlight, just quiet execution. This isn't about shyness. It's about strategy. According to a 2010 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, individuals who frequently self-promote are seen as less competent and less likable, especially when their results don't match their noise. Sigma males understand this intuitively, while others are caught in the performance of success, talking louder, posting more, spinning stories. Sigmas are in the background, designing systems that work. By the time you notice what they've done, it's already finished. And by the time you try to copy it, they've already moved on. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's focus. They conserve energy, they play long games. They measure twice, and don't need to cut again. You won't find them announcing comebacks, because they never left. They were just too disciplined to dance for the crowd. In psychology, this is linked to a high internal locus of control, the belief that outcomes come from one's own actions, not from external validation or group recognition. Sigma males don't need an audience to feel real. They don't need praise to feel progress. And when they do speak, when they do show up, people stop and listen. Not because they're loud, but because they've been silent until it mattered. They don't need to shine. They let their work create the light. And that's why so many underestimate them, until it's too late to catch up. For most people, being overlooked feels like disrespect. For a Sigma, it feels like freedom. No pressure, no expectations. Just space to move, think, and strike on their own terms. They don't interrupt your assumptions. They use them. This isn't insecurity, it's strategy. Because while you're underestimating them, they're collecting information, positioning, refining their edge. When people assume you're average, they don't guard against you. They don't see you coming. And that's exactly how a Sigma likes it. In psychological terms, this is a form of social camouflage. It's often linked to adaptive introversion, a tendency to lower social visibility in order to preserve autonomy and observe without being observed. Sigma males take this further. They don't hide because they're weak. They stay quiet because it lets them think without interference. They aren't burdened by performance pressure. They aren't constantly trying to prove themselves. And that's what makes their success feel sudden, even shocking. Because when they strike, it's without warning, without noise, without permission. They've already done the work, already built the system, already walked the hard road in silence. You just didn't see it, and they don't say, "I told you so." They don't need to. The results speak louder than their silence ever could. Most people fear isolation. To them, being alone feels like punishment, an exile, a void. For a Sigma, it's home. They don't just tolerate solitude, they thrive in it. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, belonging is considered a basic psychological need, right after food, safety, and shelter. But Sigma males often skip that tier entirely. While others chase connection to validate identity, Sigma males build identity in silence. It's not because they don't want connection. It's because they don't want the conditions that often come with it: conformity, compromise, and social performance. They'd rather sit alone in clarity than together in confusion. This is a form of self-sufficiency bias, a psychological trait where a person derives confidence, purpose, and direction internally, rather than relying on external affirmation or group belonging. It doesn't mean they're antisocial. They can enjoy company. They can love deeply, but they don't need it to feel whole. Imagine a crowded dinner table, laughter, banter, performance, everyone trying to impress. No one really listening. The Sigma male stays long enough to feel the room and leaves before he loses himself in it. This confuses others. They see distance and assume loneliness. But Sigmas don't flee connection. They refuse to fake it. To them, forced friendships are more isolating than solitude. And here's what sets them apart. When most people are alone, they fill the silence with distractions. Sigma males let it echo, because it's in that space, the space with no noise, no approval, no expectations, that they calibrate, they reflect, they reset, they sharpen. So no, they don't flinch when they're alone. They build. Some people talk just to fill space. They ask how you are, but don't care for the answer. They smile, nod, laugh, all on autopilot. Sigma males don't play that game. Their words are rare, not because they're cold, but because they're intentional. If they ask how you're doing, they genuinely want to know. If they stay quiet, it's not awkwardness, it's honesty. They believe in the power of silence, because silence reveals more than small talk ever will. A 2010 study in psychological science found that people who engage in more substantive conversations, those with meaning, emotion, and depth, report significantly higher levels of happiness and life satisfaction than those who rely on shallow banter. In other words, depth isn't just more real, it's more fulfilling. Sigma males speak when it matters, and when it doesn't, they don't. This often gets misunderstood as aloofness or arrogance, but in reality, it's the opposite. They're listening, measuring, studying the patterns behind the noise, because to a Sigma, connection isn't about frequency, it's about authenticity. They won't fake laughter to make you comfortable. They won't pretend to be impressed. They don't offer polite lies to fill the void. Instead, they leave the space empty, because only then can something true take root. And here's the paradox. Their refusal to talk makes their voice hit harder when they finally do speak. One sentence, one truth, and the room gets quiet, not out of fear, but out of respect. If these traits sound familiar, you're not broken, you're not antisocial, you're Sigma. And in a world addicted to noise, your silence has always said more than their shouting ever could. Subscribe for more, and stay sharp, stay sovereign, stay Sigma.